What has happened is this: as the evolution of the equipment, when the equipment was heavy, it slowed everything down to a very low beat. As the evolution became light, it increased the beat. See, and it sort of fitted in with the younger generation. In other words, that's the way it is. And because even, and what was interesting, we attempted when we were young to build a lighter board, but without the fin, the lighter board did not have any directional stability. It was wandering all over the place. The heavy board became a displacement hull, which caused the trough to be built, which you set yourself in. And as the boards got lighter, it would take it out of that trough. Well, without the fin, they were hopeless. We did away with them. We got back to the displacement hull until the skeg came. When the skeg came, then everything was allowed to lift up and plane, because the skeg is what held you. Interesting. And and I think that what you're seeing today in the sport of surfing is that it's a byproduct of the fast beat, a different kind of dance, a faster beat dance, and it's the result of the skateboard. So you see, it's like we're victims of our environment, those things that we create. If you take all that away, it'd go back to the original styles. In fact, I think a lot of people would give up surfing because it was difficult. It wasn't easy. You follow me?
Yeah, I follow.
There's a direct correlation between all of that. Two things I want to know. What is it to be educated? And the other, what is economics? He said, look, I'm going to be here 2.5 weeks. Before I leave, I'll tell you. Okay? So this gentleman was, he didn't know much. He didn't know much. He was a professor at Yale University. He didn't know much. What I meant was that he didn't know how to surf. He didn't know how to sail. He didn't know how to canoe. He didn't know how to dive and catch a fish. Okay? I taught him every single thing. And he was sitting right under the banyan tree on the wall with Duke Kahanamoku. And they were talking. So I came down, and he saw me walking down. And he says to me, hey, Keoki, put your board down. I said, oh, you don't want to go surfing? He said, I told you, I'm going to be leaving. I said, oh, when? He said, tomorrow. I said, oh, wow. He said, remember you asked me those questions? I said, yeah, but I had forgotten about it. We became friends. We became friends. We were doing all these things. We were friends. So I said, oh, yeah. So I had to go back and think, what did I tell him? Oh, I know what it was. He says, stand up. So I stood up there and had my trunks on. And he says, economics. He says, you asked a question. What is economics? He says, well, imagine now, the whole beach of Waikiki is gold. What are you going to do with it? And I'm now, I'm thinking this guy is throwing some riddles to me. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know what you refer to it. So I'm thinking, wow, what am I going to do with it? So he says, yeah, what are you going to do with it? It's all gold. Why don't you reach down with 2 hands and put it in your pocket And in those days, we had the special trunks for who were the beach guys. We had these special made trunks, and it had one pocket front, one pocket where our tips, whatever, lunch money. So I'm looking at this. I got small hands, so the sand is dripping, falling through. He says, "Yeah, why don't you throw one hand away so you can open your pocket?" So I did. I threw one hand away, opened the pocket, and put the sand in there. And he looked at me. He said, "My boy, that's economics." He says, "Now, what is it to be educated?" He says, "When I came here, I never sailed a boat in my life. And the catamaran used to fly. It was like, Manukai is the flying bird. That's the name, Manukai, the seabird, flying bird, seabird, okay? We sailed that, and we let them bring the helm, the main sheet, This is big deal, because, when you have the feeling of this movement and steering it, And so I said, "You taught me how to sail." Never sailed before in my life. I said, "You taught me to go in a canoe, to paddle it, and you actually let me steer a boat with people, with guys in it, And that was a big deal, big canoes, The canoe was it was over 30 feet, and the canoe was about 800 pounds dead weight, and then the people in it, you had 8 people, so you got quite a bit of weight, and they're not easy. They're, special long canoes coming down a wave. You taught me how to enjoy a canoe. You also took me skin diving. Never before, I was kind of skeptical about looking underwater, and you taught me how to, the difference between the corals, and you taught me how to spear fish. He actually did. He speared a fish, And he said, "You taught me how to surf." To the point where I'm kind of flashing on him now. He says, to the point that I could catch my own wave. And that was in learning, I can see the guy. One moment. He says, in learning, I told him, when you learn, you're able to paddle into a wave and catch the wave anytime you want, or when not to catch a wave. So he said, "You taught me how to surf." So he said to me, he says, "My boy, anytime a man can share a discipline with another, teach him something, he's educated." This movie director, John Ford, you probably heard of him, very famous movie director. Well, he was a friend of Duke Kahanamoku, and he got to know Duke got to know John from John Wayne, the movie actor, the cowboy movie actor, and I got to meet John Ford because I was in charge of water safety in the movie called Hawaii. I said, "Wow, boat, kind of heavy." So he says, "Yeah." So he says, why don't you go up to, I think the guy's name was John Burgess, who was the understudy to John Ford. Why don't you go see him? You know the guy. So I said, okay. So I go up to Burgess and I said, hey, Burgess, you know, too much weight on a canoe. It'll float, but any chop is going to start getting in a canoe, and because of the platform, it's hard to bail. So he said, well, he says, you know, we're going to have to just live with it. We're trying to keep it afloat. So I go back and I see Steamboat. I say, hey, Boat, I guess they don't care. And I'm saying, you know, man, we can't allow that to happen on our watch. This gigantic camera, you know, mega bucks, you know, dollars. Yeah, we can't. So I tell you what, they noticed, they notified, lunch was being served right at the Royal Hawaiian Hotel. We were down from the Royal. So he says lunch was being served. So we stood there, he and I stood there, and he says, hey, Boat, why don't we shove it in the water? Let it sink, but it won't sink. It'll only go down as deep as the water is, and it's on sand. He says, yeah, good idea. So we went ahead, and as John Ford and Burgess and all those guys are walking up, we pushed the boat in the water, and it sinks. Okay? So John Ford is walking up, just classic guy. He had the one iPad. I got to show you this. So he's walking up, and he's walking up with Burgess. And so somebody must have said something to him. See? So John Ford, I forgot what eye it was, but he's walking up like this, and somebody says something, and he looks like this. And keeps going. So we go up there, and we're now having lunch. Because everybody, the crew and the whole thing at the Royal Hawaiian Hotel. So he sends a guy down to ask Steamboat to go up. John Ford wants to talk to him. He's the elder, okay? So the guy comes down and says, hey, Boat, John Ford wants to talk to you. And Boat looks at me. He said, Laddie, you go talk to him. So I said, Boat, he wants you. Laddie, go talk to him. So I go up there, and I get up there, and I'm trying to think, oh man, what am I going to say? See? So here's John Ford. Here's what he said. He says, come, sit down. He says, he looks at me. I don't want to use profanity, because what he said to me, he says, you're the most stubborn SB I've ever encountered in my life. Now, how do we do it? That was what he said to me. So I said to him, oh, easy, Mr. Ford. He says, what? I said, easy. He says, how would you do it? I said, simple. My Uncle Woody has a catamaran, and we'll take off the jib and put the platform in front there. You can mount your cameras and go in and out, do everything you want. He turns over to one of the engineers. He said, what the hell did you guys think of this? And it was done.
That's a good story.